Well, hello. I am so excited to have an Ayurveda medicine person on, and we are going to discuss hormones today. We're going to discuss weight loss. We're going to discuss taking care of your body and the importance of self-care in this day and age as women. That is so important, especially as I'm aging. Hormones are and hormone balancing is so important, and proper self-care. I have an expert on. Just so excited that she's going to be on the podcast. And pronounce your first and last name so I don't destroy it for me.
Thanks for that introduction, Naomi. My first name and last name, it's Nidhi Pandya, Nidhi and Pandya. But you know what? You can call me whatever works for you, but it's Nidhi Pandya.
I can call you the healer. So tell me a little short history about you.
Right. So Naomi, luckily I was born into a family where my grandfather was an Ayurvedic healer. So Ayurveda is the only way I know how to live. Right. And I just want to take a moment here and kind of explain what Ayurveda really is, because I think a lot of people think that it's strict prescriptions of do's and don'ts. But what Ayurveda is, it teaches you how to be in a state where all your tissues, hormones, digestions, mind, as well as senses, they're all balanced. Right? So all of these different aspects, which including mind and senses, digestion, tissues, hormones, when you're in that balanced state, and it also explains what balance is, as well as how to get to that state. So it's really a very holistic science, and there is no topic on this universe that it has not covered. It's that vast, whether what career you should have or what spouse will help you attain balance, or, how, if your period looks like this, what does that mean? To just everything that you can possibly think of under the sun. It's basically covers every single topic. So I was luckily born into a family of Ayurveda, and I inherited a lot of these practices. Then I've also gotten a formal education where I've studied the Sanskrit texts, which are directly from the Vedas, which are the biggest books of knowledge so far that we've had on this planet, which we still have existing. So yeah, luckily I've done that. I've moved to the US 15 years ago. I grew up in Mumbai, and ever since then I've been studying and teaching and studying and teaching, and now I have a full practice, and I also teach at the Shakti School of Ayurveda. I write for a bunch of magazines, and yeah, I teach Ayurveda wherever I can.
That is so awesome. And when it comes to like our hormones, I have you heard of Dr. Sarah Godfrey?
I've heard of her, but I've not heard of much of her work. Like I've not looked into her work that much.
She is an MD, but she's also very fond of Ayurveda medicine and a yoga instructor. And so she will also recommend a lot when it comes to herbs and balance and yoga practicing and meditation. So it's really cool.
Right.
And so when it comes to hormones, though, and women's hormones and weight loss,
mm-hmm.
If they're out of balance, we have a whole other situation why you could be having problems on the scale.
Right. Absolutely. And so according to Ayurveda, Naomi, right, it's like when you consume your food, right, your tissues get fed in order. That's the basic principle of Ayurveda, that your lymph plasma gets fed first, then your blood, then muscle, etc., etc. Right? Making it to your hormones, nourishing your hormones become a really hard deal because it's the hardest to get to, but the easiest to get affected, right? So the easiest to go wrong because it is the hardest to nourish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Right? And so Ayurvedically, that is true. So whenever we see anybody with a hormonal imbalance, the first thing we will do is whether they're able to maintain, right? What happens most often, there are two things that we see happening with hormonal imbalance, right? One, there's a long history of eating excessive junk foods growing up, mm-hmm. right? And what that does is that it inherently plays with the temperature of your gut. It plays with the temperature of your body. Like your body is supposed to be, and of course this is all Ayurvedic understanding, but it makes complete sense to me, is a tropical place. Right? A tropical place, a good tropical, let's say spring, but not summer. So it's not super hot, but nice, warm and moist. Mm-hmm. And we know that your body should be warm and moist. Everything, all your enzymes, hormones, everything is warm and moist. When it becomes overly hot, you can have a certain set of problems. When it becomes overly cold, you can have a certain set of problems. What we see when people who've eaten excessive junk foods, a lot of snacking as well, a lot of processed foods while growing up, that tropical environment has taken a big hit. And the first thing that happens, right, is this undigested, really slimy, gooey stuff food that happens inside. And that has found every time more and more to be directly related to your hormones, like kind of affecting your hormones, sugared, highly sugary foods. That's one. Secondly, how many of our foods actually contain hormones today, right? So the fact that your food contains hormones, I mean, one of the biggest principles of Ayurveda, and I only talk principles, I rarely talk herbs because herbs are not available to everybody. But one of the biggest principles of Ayurveda is like supports like. If you consume something that has a hormone, it's going to play with your hormones. If you consume something which is nice and moist and natural, it's going to increase that quality in your body. Right? So these are the two things that we have always seen in terms of what creates that hormonal imbalance, is that excessive eating junk food as a child, especially in your preteen years.
And so your thought when someone wants to make the big shift, it's a slow progress in working with the gut, because that's where it all happens. In repairing?
Yeah. Sorry?
In repairing the hormones.
In repairing the hormones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So the first shift happens in the gut. Also, there are, of course, herbs, Naomi, that are definitely very, very supportive because, and like, again, and I find these things very interesting and I feel like nobody talks about them. So I'm going to say, right. So the basic Ayurveda does a beautiful job of explaining the difference between food and herbs, right? So people talk about using food as medicine and using herbs as medicine. And I'll tell you, Ayurveda describes it beautifully. It says that food, right, a large quantity of food will do the effect that will kind of cause the effect that a small quantity of herbs can. So herbs are food qualities of certain foods packed very densely into a small quantity. Mm-hmm. And that's why herbs will help you to expedite your process. What food could do, let's say in 6 months, herbs might be able to do in 3 weeks. Right. Mm-hmm. So since pathologies are created over such long periods, we don't have that much time. We're moving towards depreciation as we age. So pathologies take time to create, but when we want to repair, we definitely want to expedite. We don't have all the time in the world. So I think herbal support helps, but herbal support without fixing the cause is basically it's not good at all. You're going to come back again exactly where you are. You're going to find that imbalance again. So I have found, especially with people who have things like PCOS, PCOD, and weight gain related to that as well, intermittent fasting and drinking warm teas, giving up cold substances, right? And just drinking warm teas really, really helps to create that shift and balance and restoring that gut environment in the gut.
It's funny because Chinese medicine has a little of that also. I just got a new herb book and explained the first page was about Ayurveda medicine and then Chinese medicine, which it also has the cold versus the warm parts of the body and that whole second. And I have this whole book on the herbs and I just love it. And when we're talking herbs, that's one way to ingest herbs in a very natural, very good way. I had someone that called me and messaged me the other day and wants an appointment. And we were talking about, she was like, are you fond of teas? I'm like, oh, am I a fan of tea? I know. I'm like, oh, yes, I am. And buying it organic. And there are many teas. I mean, for even a parasite, you can do a great tea.
Yeah.
And some of them don't always taste well. There's some of the herbs that are in teas that you can just add other stuff to it. But yes. And the fact of, I think starting the morning off, I was just telling her my little tip of starting the morning off with a warm water, lemon juice, and apple cider vinaigrette with a teeny little baking soda is a great way to start your morning off. I'm not sure how you like to start your morning off, but
So I would say again, right? I think it's different. I think warm water, definitely, for sure. But I think what you put in that warm water also, Naomi, would depend upon the climatic conditions inside. Like I literally think we need to treat our body as like we talk about climatic change in the world. Let's talk about the climatic change inside, right? So while I feel like a lot of people, especially here in the US, could do very well with apple cider vinegar, but I will tell you, there's also people who have depleted mucus lining in their gut,
Mm,
who have already, like, there's Arizona inside, let's just say, right? There's no mucus lining, nothing protecting that, protecting them. And if they consume apple cider vinegar or even a lot of lemon juice, they actually can char their insides, right?
mm, mm.
Versus a person who has a lot of toxic residue sitting inside, let's say undigested food particles sitting and sticking to the walls of their gut. For
Mm.
them, apple cider vinegar would scrub it clean, just as you would use vinegar to clean slime and grime off your pots and pans,
Mm.
right? So
Mm.
examination of the climate inside is the number one thing. And yes, with hormonal stuff, we know, right? Like, I mean, even when you see people with, PCOS, PCOD, hirsutism, all of that has boost in testosterone for sure. And we know that to be a hotter hormone, right? So there's definitely this whole play with the climatic condition inside that's going on. So I keep bringing people to that awareness. I speak about this again and again and again, so they become mindful of it. Sometimes people will just give up drinking that cold iced coffee in the morning, and they'll notice such a big shift. Because I'm like, we are warm-blooded, right?
Mm.
We need to maintain homeostasis, that whole environment.
Mm.
And your gut is a warm place, because transformation happens rapidly in your gut.
Mhm.
Any transformation in the universe requires heat. When you're drinking cold things, your body has to work that much harder to maintain that body temperature, and the breakdown of your foods becomes that much more difficult. And to do this thing to you in first thing in the morning, so sometimes even little shifts, right, go a long way. Even in people who've had, PCOS, PCOD for years and years, they find such drastic shifts when they adopt some some clean practices, as well as some herbal support.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's really great to know that that's how they approach it with Ayurveda medicine. Um, and so when you're working with someone with a problem with the hormones, you work with the gut a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm. Gut a lot. And of course, there is other stuff. I also work with breathing a lot, right? Because it is amazing, right? I mean, now more and more, like we earlier knew the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain. Now there's talk about the energies, masculine and feminine. And there's energy, then there's also talk in the whole, like the spiritual world, about the Shakti and the Shiv, right? So we understand that there's also cooling and warming energies in your body, right? Whether it's called masculine, feminine, whatever, it's up to us what we want to call them, right? Just how the earth has the sun and the moon, the heating and the cooling, that's how your body is. What are you going to invite and maximize? There are certain kinds of breath, Naomi, that really support that resetting of that, balancing those energies. So I also do a lot of breath work. And when people start, they're like, oh my God, really? Like this 10 minutes of breath is going to make a difference? But when they get to it, they're just like, out of everything that I've given them, they're like, this breath work is really what I cannot imagine how much difference it makes.
What do you call that when you do the nasal, when you're taking breath in on one side of the passage and then go to the other side? What do you call that?
So that is also a type of a pranayama, and the few types. So that one is called Anulom Vilom or Nadi Shodhan, or alternate nostril breathing.
And what does that do for the body? I've done it and I was like shocked how amazing that is.
It's amazing, right? And I actually have an IGTV video on that, which I posted maybe 3-4 weeks ago. So I'll tell you what it does. Is, again, to give you a Western understanding, it balances the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
But to give you another deeper understanding, it balances the warming and the cooling energies in your body. What it does, what it translates into, is protecting, firstly giving you a sense of calm, really grounding you, because now your energy is, nothing is out of order, nothing is volatile. So really grounding you, keeping the myelin sheath on your nerves protected. So keeping your nervous system really protected and grounding, as well as the cerebral spinal fluid, which kind of is related very closely, the depletion of which is related to Alzheimer's, dementia, is to keep that protected as well.
Mm.
So this breathing practice done every single day goes a long way. Just by this, you can regulate the temperature of your body and you can reset it. And reset not only the temperature of your body, you reset your nervous system, you reset your focus. It's a reset button on your body.
It is. I did it when I was very stressed, and boy, did that recenter me more than I thought it would. And I've done it in a yoga class. That was the first time I ever did it, was in a yoga class, and I knew nothing. And then I was learning more about it, listening to a book, and I was like, well, that is amazing. And then she talked about it becoming from the Ayurveda medicine and the yoga practice. And it's something people can, breath work and meditation is something that we need to be doing every day just to center ourselves. And it was earlier before the call, we talked about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic systems, and being in that fight or flight spot where too many people are in that stressed out area, which is weakens their immune system, messes with their hormones. Actually, that is where you will gain more weight, and people are not working towards being in that rest and digest, side of their system where they need to be more in that area. So there's many little things, like you said, that you do, that's one of the best things is the breath work, that to just make that shift. And it's a mindful choice.
Absolutely. And I think, again, back to you said it, mindfulness. The whole concept of mindfulness is to bring in a part of your mind which otherwise gets disconnected when you're in stress. The prefrontal cortex, which kind of is your part, is the brain, is that mother to your body, right? Like, so if your internal body had that mother who tells you, do this, don't do that, under stress, that mother gets disconnected. That part of your brain is disconnected from your whole nervous system. And the minute you bring mindfulness to it, right, is bringing that part back, that rational part that can tell you, do this, don't do that. And it, of course, you yourself contain it. So things like this breath work, sometimes I feel like it even works better than meditation, because, for some people, when you're in that high level of stress, meditating can be really, really hard. But bringing your mind and attention, bringing that mother back that you need to tell you what to do through the breath work, which is more mechanical, right, is tremendously helpful. And all of this, right? Even hormones, we know hormones is related to stress. Stress is a warm emotion. Again, stress is a hot emotion. Chronic stress can be a dry and hot emotion. Chronic anxiety can be a cold and dry emotion. So even emotions, it's amazing, right, Naomi? In Ayurveda, it's stated so clearly that emotions also have their properties. There's certain effects they're going to have on your gut. And we know a lot of people with hormonal disturbances have a lot of chronic stress.
Yep.
Right? And they kind of feed into each other.
Yep. And it's one that goes just down the pipeline. So as this kind of wrapping up my whole session when it comes to weight loss, if we're not intentional with our mindset, we're not intentional with using maybe some breath work and taking a step back and looking at our lives, what could we bring back into balance by just proper self-care. You're going to do a lot with helping to balance and restoring your health and your hormones. But it's a slow process too. If you're way out of balance and you're living a fast-paced Starbucks life, is like to call it, where everyone's just rushing through life and living off of caffeine, your hormone imbalances are going to be quite high, and they are going to affect how you are wanting to be on the right numbers on the scale.
You know what? Absolutely. I think, like you said, I think the few things, right? If I have to kind of break it down into a few things, I would say, like what you said, going this fast, where our whole lives are like a to-go life. Everything is on the go. That kind of life, to kind of switch out of it, just to give up processed sugars. I'm not even going to say lower processed sugars. Give up processed sugars. Give up cold drinks. Eat 2.5 square meals a day. You don't need more than that. Yep. And bring in some intermittent fasting if you're not depleted. This is just a general advice for hormonal imbalance. For more specific, what is the imbalance? Of course, we can talk more, and it's more specific advice. But for anybody who's experiencing hormonal imbalance, if you just did this and got a good night's sleep, you're good. And that intermittent fasting, I say, is so important. Is basically, I'm going to explain that ketosis in a much easier way. Is your body is going to still produce its digestive enzymes. It's still going to say, hey, I'm ready to digest food. Is any food here for me? And when it's not there for you, all of that slime and grime that I'm talking about that gets stuck inside your pipelines and starts fermenting because you're warm-blooded to begin with, that has a chance to be scrubbed clean. Mm. And once that's scrubbed clean, you're restoring balance in your body. Otherwise, that slime and grime is just sitting in your pipes and you're giving it more food and more food and more food. And your body can barely digest what you're eating today. Forget what it ate yesterday. Is just like, I'm not even dealing with you now. Right? So that intermittent fasting, eating earlier with the sun, basically follow the sun, and I'll tell people to stop worrying so much about the climatic changes outside. Our Earth has survived a lot. There was one big mass of land. Now we have 7 continents. Your Earth will survive what's happening. Let's focus also on our internal climatic conditions.
Very good. I'm just thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I want to, in the show notes, if you are looking for someone to help you with your Ayurveda, she will have all her links in the show notes. So if you want to reach out and learn more. She also does a lot on Instagram, so you can follow you. What is your Instagram?
It's my_Ayurvedic_life. So maybe we can also put that in the show notes because it's not very easy. I mean, I've just had it for long, so I don't feel like changing it, but it's not very easy always for people to kind of, spell that out for themselves.
And it's just funny you talk about fasting. I just did 44 hours and I want to push it longer. And I have to tell you, is the mind clarity is so cool. And I wanted to go longer, but my body was I lost the mind clarity. I was feeling the weak and my body was saying, oh no, I'm ready for stuff more there. And I do bone broth with mine, but everyone's different. With hot tea and stuff too, but for the electrolytes and the collagen, that's what I did. So I
think that's great, Naomi. That's perfect. I would say lentil soup or bone broth. And I think it's great. Also, you listened to your body because firstly, intermittent fasting is not for everyone. We're talking about hormonal problems. And, and if you sense that your body needs it, a lot of people can use it, but it's great that you listened to when your body said that, hey, I'm done. I probably digested that slime and grime and now I'm ready for new food, because if you don't take in that new food, it's going to now digest your tissues and you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So great. Wow. That's really in tune.
Yeah. It is about, listening to your body. And like I said, I'm just getting over a cold and I took the time to rest. And I think that most people, if anything get from this podcast, is please listen to your body, slow down your life, where you're going to do some mindful thinking about what you can be doing for yourself, because it's going to affect everyone else around you too. And get back connected to that's why I go to yoga. And I don't do just yoga at home. I like going to a place where I'm connected with people and we're all together and I'm the one who said a swear word, trying a new pose, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, I take myself out of that and I give myself those time period where I'm taking care of my body in a way that feels amazing. And I leave yoga and I've done, what's the hot yoga called? Bikram yoga. What an intense event, but I love it actually. It is, I feel like, oh my gosh, $1 million afterwards. And I feel recentered in my body and I love it. So if anyone gets any from that, just self-care is where it's at. That's where you're going to see the biggest change before you go see a physician, before you go look at your lab work, whatever, which is a great thing in some sense too. I just had to do that with my hormones. It is getting back into listening to your body and being into to listening to your body, what it needs.
Right. And following simple principles and living by simple, like you don't need something too fancy. You don't need to listen to all the health experts out there. You just need to understand how you can listen to your body. Just learning that process and following some simple principles. So I'm with you on that.
Yes, we totally agree. I just want to thank you again for being on. Maybe we'll
Thank you for having me.
Some other time, and we'll do a deeper talk on something else. And we'll talk when I go to another subject, maybe when I'm doing a gut health thing, because we will bring that back in.
Even sleep is big. Sleep is something that I deal with a lot. So sleep is something big as well. So
it is. My hormones, that's why I got sick, is my I'm going through the change. And so I don't know if you're a proponent of bioidentical hormones, but I'm starting that because so I have like no estrogen in my body, and so my low estrogen and my low progesterone have caused me sleep issues and many other issues in my life.
Right. And then I can see then why even intermittent fasting and why Bikram yoga would feel good in your body internally, because just with that low estrogen, I would imagine why kind of symptoms that you would have that would allow you to endure that.
That's what I needed. I've been doing all of it. I went and did my blood work myself, and trying to work on it, balancing it myself before. And I am doing a little bioidenticals, but mostly with a cream. I don't want to do a pill.
Great. Okay. That's good. Yeah. The creams are always,
I'm a huge fan of the progesterone cream when you hit premenopause.
Right.
So I'm feeling better now, and I do so much, but then I also was kind of just running at that time when I kind of got sick and I wasn't sleeping well. So it was just like, get it back into my body, get back into de-stressing, get back into doing things and I have a regular routine of things I do, of supplements I take, and just things that I do that have helped with balancing my health and balancing my hormones.
Right. So you're feeling like yourself again. That's great.
Yeah. For the most part. Yeah. I mean, and it was good it's good to get validation too, to get the blood work and get the validation. Oh, yeah. What I was feeling and thinking going on in my head is validated with blood work. So.
Absolutely. I think the diagnostics today in the world are great, and we should definitely use them as much as we can.
Yes. Well, I don't want to take your time. You have many calls. It's been, everyone's been rubbed up with what we've been thinking about lately. So I just thank you for being on. And
thank you for having me, Naomi. Wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah. And I look forward to chatting with you some other time.
Yes, absolutely. Feel better. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay.